So there we go. So you were listening to the episode with the franchise?
Yeah, the franchisor, the guy who helps his clients
Mark,
open franchises and get into franchises.
Mark Kale.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Oh, he
Yeah,
was,
Mark of a C.
yes.
right.
With the C.
What did you like about that episode?
Me, the amazing questions I asked,
No.
how I hold you to the point. No, okay.
No, honestly, I love the points Mark made about business. The way he went about it himself as far as delegation and stuff like that. That's something that we try to get our clients to do too. Not easier said than done.
Yeah, it is. It's funny is I work for a corporation now. I don't have my own small business, but I was like struggling under the weight of, oh my God, how am I going to get this done? Like, and when he said delegate, I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. I've got people that work for me.
I wear
can
that
delegate.
hat.
Yeah, okay, here we go. The next day.
My job position
Yeah,
says.
delegate as needed. But man, it made my life a little bit easier when I was able to. But yeah, I mean, he had some good stuff about being a franchise owner. Look at it like investing in the stock market. It's just another way of
Absolutely.
with a better return. And then when he said, there's a program where you can use your 401k to fund the franchise, I was like, knock me over with a feather. I thought, it'd be like, I got to come up with $100,000 from somewhere to do
No,
this.
you'd be surprised how many different options people have to enter business purchases. And so not just franchises, but just general businesses. It's more knowledge needs to be out there because a lot of people who would do something else just don't know they have the option.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's our intent is to educate the masses.
Before
Hey guys,
the record button for the actual podcast, Megan sent some questions because she can't.
Oh no.
So
I got a whole bunch of memes from Megan, so that can't be good.
okay.
She's always got good questions.
These are the pre ones. She said she'll do a couple others, but she was like, "Where's the contract for Catoosa County?" And she said, "You're joking. You're the best, Danny." What's the average length of time you typically wait before you tell someone to call you Danny and not Daniel? And then, but she's got a couple others we'll save for the actual show.
That's
Cool.
Fun.
Well, guys, I just want to make sure, is there, because right now I don't have headphones, but if headphones help feedback, I can definitely do that. Do you guys have a preference?
No, it's fine.
There is no
It's
feedback
fine.
right now, so you're good.
Cool,
How
perfect.
do we sound?
How do we sound? Yeah. Can you hear us?
I hear you guys perfectly, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Before I
Well,
cut you off, did you have another question?
I gotta
No.
introduce myself. Excuse me.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for
Excuse
the
me.
I'm gonna make sure that I am like good to go.
All right. Okay. Good.
And
Good
you
to
give
go.
give them the whole spiel.
All right. My name's Lynn, by the way. I'm the one of the
Nice to meet you, Lynn.
co-hosts.
I knew from the podcast, but
Yeah.
it's nice to meet you again.
Yeah, nice to meet you. And just so you know, you can see our table, and there's some white stuff on the table. Those are paper towels to pick up the red wine that I inevitably spill. But we don't have show notes. We really do treat this like a cocktail party, and we keep it to an hour. We start out with introducing you, and what's your why, and then it just kind of, you heard with Megan, the Mark. It just kind of meanders along, and then we reach a natural end and we close it up. And then at the end, if you could just stay on the line when we turn off the recording, so that we can get like if you have social media or email or any questions you might have, things like that, we can take care of those little housekeeping things then.
Cool. Perfect. If there's anything for me to, just let me know.
Okay.
Happy to provide anything I might need. Can you give me 1 second? I want to make sure that my dog is quiet while we're doing this.
Okay, no problem. What kind of dog do you have?
I have a little like pit bull mix. Very excitable guy.
Yes, I love that kind of mix. Anything a little bit different. Darren's number one. Hey, do you hear that, Darren? You're number one. You're number one. Not two. Number one. It's been a long day. Long week. It's only Wednesday. And by the way, I don't like this line. Just in case you get to this part of the video, this line's not that great. The guy at Cheers recommended it.
I heard something about bad wine.
Yeah, first of all, where are you located?
I'm located physically in California.
Okay, so you're in California. So we're just south of Atlanta. Megan's basically one of our neighbors down here. And we have this local package store that's like, I don't know, 200 yards from the podcast studio.
Yep.
And I bought this wine, which is a Smith and Hook Central Coast Cabernet Sauvignon.
Good.
Do you like it?
Yeah.
So the dude over there, the big guy,
Yeah,
he recommended it. I don't know if I like it.
I usually pick my own stuff.
Damn, I was getting frustrated. And he's like, "What do you need? What do you want? What do you want?" Okay, pick one out.
Yeah.
Fine. Where in California are you?
I'm in Southern California, so Rancho Cucamonga.
Okay. No
Sorry.
hurricanes for you.
No, very, very safe. So I'm actually originally from the East Coast. I was born and raised in New York, New Jersey. Grew up right there on the Hudson River for pretty much my
Nice.
entire life. And then I moved out here like 8 years ago.
Okay. All right.
Come on,
I feel like episode of Beavis and
I
Butthead.
know. You ready?
Titicaca. Titicaca. Let's go there. I love sophomore humor. Okay.
Are we ready?
Hence my penchant for Monty Python. Yes, we're ready. Yeah.
All right, let's get this thing rocking and rolling. There we go. There's 3, 2, 1. Folks, welcome back to Toasting the Business. Lynn,
Yo,
this is 2 weeks in a row for you.
I know.
And you are fired up today.
I've had a long week and I need to let out some energy.
She's
Yeah.
spicy, folks. So hopefully she won't take it on her guests, but take it out on the guests. She's taking it out on me. It's all
No.
good. Watch your elbow and your
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll clean that up.
But anyway,
That.
let's start by talking about our sponsor.
Yes.
And our sponsor is Perspective without an E. And Megan from Perspective actually suggested the guest that we're having on today.
She knows a lot of people.
Interviewed this person and said, you got to have him on.
Mhm.
So she might actually
Call in the middle.
She may be texting in the middle. So from time to time, I'm not being rude. I'm
Okay.
checking to see if Megan's sending questions.
The bat phone. You've
Yeah.
got that.
So-
The bat phone.
Anyway, if you're thinking about a career change maybe, or you're a middle schooler and you're not sure, or you have a middle schooler and they're kind of thinking about, hey, I want to do this for a living,
Right.
want to do that, or you're a teacher and you're trying to like learn your kids some other things besides just the curriculum.
Yeah.
And you want to bring this into your school system, go to Perspective. It's getperspective.com, and that's getperspective without the E.com. And check out all the videos that she's made from everybody and all their different businesses. It's so cool.
Yeah, and her website's beautiful, and the content is just great.
All the
It's
different
yes.
stations,
Mhm.
planets,
Planets,
and
yeah.
everything else. So check that out. And she's not with us this week. She's got family in town,
Nice.
so hanging out. But otherwise, she'd be here. So thanks again. And let's get to
Yes,
our
thank
guest,
you.
shall we?
Yes, we shall.
Daniel Lopez, right?
Daniel Lopez. Yeah, that's correct.
Awesome. Daniel, thanks for being on the podcast. I finally figured out split screen.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. And and the reason that's
So
important
simple.
is if you care to see what's going on or hear what happens before we hit the record button for the podcast episode, we usually turn it on and record a little video, and you can find it
Yeah.
over on YouTube.
I know that thing,
Super cool.
YouTube,
The thing.
the thing.
Yeah, the thing that other people
Or if you
do.
want to see what we look like, it's-
Ugh.
yeah.
Or check out our logo.
Yeah, our
That's on
logo.
the
It might be
wall.
backwards for our viewers. We don't know yet.
I gotta double check that.
Yeah,
Anywho, enough about that. We're here to talk to Daniel.
we are here to talk to
And I'm super excited, Daniel, because you deal with business law, you deal with trademark law, and well, you tell us.
Yeah, so I guess the best way you can describe me is a general business attorney, where we deal with everything from contracts to trademarks. Our job is to make sure that our clients sleep better at night. So when we work with them, when we work for them, we kind of make sure that everything in their business is lined up for them to be successful.
Excellent.
Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for guys. Thanks for having me, and thanks, Megan, for connecting us. And she's been sending me memes throughout this whole thing. So if I laugh at something, it's
that's
probably
great.
something she just texted me.
So are you a standalone lawyer? I mean, do you do your own thing, or are you with a firm, or how are you doing this? I mean, I always think of lawyers, they work at a big firm and they're part of a consortium and
Lots of billable
yeah,
hours.
lots of billable. How do you work this?
Yeah, so you guys are interviewing me at the early stages of that. So currently I'm a solo. We're a growing law firm. I founded this law firm during the pandemic. Been growing it since, have people coming on. So right now I'm the only licensed attorney that works at the law firm. That will hopefully change here pretty soon in the next 9 to 12 months.
Good, excellent. All sorts of things have been birthed out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Crazy. Why? Baby food.
Baby
Um,
food, yes.
well, that's what- why? What type of law did you practice before this, or where were you before this? Were you with a big firm? Were you working the
So-
120 hours a week, and it's like, Dan, you got to pick it up. Only 120, and you're only billing like 90 hours. We need something from you.
I mean, so the journey's pretty interesting. Coming out of law school, I knew I wanted to do trademark law. That's what really started me, as far as anything I really had any kind of passion for in law school. It's real awkward because it took me to like the third year to figure out I like something, which meant that I almost graduated law school with having no idea what I wanted to do, which is absolutely terrifying when you're taking out student loans.
Yeah.
But I found trademark law. I knew I wanted to do it, but right out of law school, you kind of just need a job. Bills are coming. You need to pay those bills. If not, you're kind of out on your butt. So I took a job at a personal injury law firm. We all love those. Yeah. Chasing car accidents and helping out people who were in bad situations. I didn't really like it. It wasn't my cup of tea. So the pandemic provided a opportunity of time and of just kind of being able to reset. So I don't know if a lot of people remember the pandemic, but there weren't a lot of cars on the road. What that meant for personal injury attorneys was a lot of free time. During that free time, I used that to kind of get my education up on things I wanted to do as far as the business world. I might be the first person to give like 6 months notice on a job, but I told my hiring attorney, hey, I'm gonna go out on my own. It's gonna be for trademark law. They didn't care. All they do is personal injury. So yeah, stay on till you're ready to go, which I totally appreciate. I started the trademark aspect of the law firm in 2020. While doing trademarks, I realized that what I really loved about it was working with business owners, not necessarily the trademark work itself.
Mhm.
And that itself kind of just catapulted the practice into what it is today, which is doing business law, helping business owners and stuff like that. And couldn't be happier. It's been an awesome experience so far.
That's great.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah.
let me ask you this, because you said the place that you worked didn't care because you were going into trademark law. So there was no non-compete that you had to deal with. And I've always wondered because, you work for a company and they're like, oh, we need you to sign this non-compete. And it's like, and I know certain states now that doesn't hold up at all.
Right.
It's like you cannot, what is it? You can't with, what is it?
I don't know.
You can't keep somebody from earning a living
Mhm.
based on where they're going, but you can't go out and poach clients that you had from the previous. How does that work? And this is a business question. Obviously, when you're dealing with business owners and they're like, I want to make sure in my contracts with my employees that there's a non-compete. Is that viable, or is that just totally bullshit these days?
We're in a very different way that we operate businesses in today's world. Business has gotten a lot more employee friendly, and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing really depends on what side of the fence you sit on. The truth of the matter is, when it comes to not competing, it's hard to tell anybody that they can't do something, right? So for example, let's say you have an employee in your construction business. If they leave your business, look, they can't forget what they've done for you, right? That's something that's in their memory. They can't unform relationships that they formed with other people, right? As much as you don't want that to happen, the truth of the matter is it kind of does, right? So for us, things like NDAs and non-competes and non-solicitations, I'm not gonna say they're warnings, but it's more of just like an understanding that if you do this, we're not gonna be happy, right? Ultimately, if you're a business owner in today's world and you really want to protect yourself, it's about setting up process and procedures that allow the customer experience to go through more than just one person. We want to make sure that if, let's say, someone does leave, it's going to take them some time to be able to, provide the same kind of quality that your business does, right? Whether that's through your intake process, whether that's through your customer service, that stuff is what we want to make irreplaceable, right? People, they're going to leave jobs. They're going to start on their own. It's just part of the process of business and life. And I don't necessarily think we should stop them. But as business owners, we have the responsibility to also protect ourselves from now on.
Right. That's interesting. It's an interesting way of looking at it. So kind of skating along the rules are made to be broken a little bit.
Just
maybe
maybe not. There's
Yeah.
other things.
Yeah.
That is a little sweet for a cat.
I just the back of my mouth is like,
Yeah. So, but all right. So you go out and you start your own business during COVID,
Yeah.
during the pandemic.
Right.
It's like, let me go do this. I'm going to open up my own practice. But other business, I mean, a lot of folks we've talked to,
Oh, so many
businesses were born out of it. Was like, the phoenix rising from the
Yeah,
ashes
it really
kind of
was,
thing
yeah.
during that. So I get it in choosing that field that you're in. And we can start I have no idea. Like, one of the very first things when you are starting a business, you should have an attorney.
Absolutely.
Hands down. I mean, that's like the first
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Don't go to Rocket, whatever, or Legal Zoom and download these forms. I mean, you're starting a business. So you probably have employee contract. You may have contracts with the businesses you're working with. You need somebody to read over a lease, or
Right,
if
right.
you're buying a piece of real estate. I mean, a lease is a huge thing. Other things like me, I had a copier machine. I have a copier.
Yeah, that whole the drama on the copier machine. Yeah.
6 years has been a bane in my side. But looking through that contract, it was, and they put in this clause, it's like 6 months before this contract ends, 6 months, you have to give them notice that you don't want to continue. Otherwise, it automatically.
How are you going to
resets.
know? What do you do? Set something
Right.
on your calendar to say, tell them? I
That's
mean,
why you have an
have an
attorney
attorney,
read
yeah.
through it thick and thin. And I was like, whoa. And I missed that. And they did a 1 year buyout with them in the end. So I own the damn thing now.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah. But it saved me a shit ton of money overall for what they were charging. But still, it was like an extra year of doing
Yeah.
that. And then there was something else like, if you want to return it, you have to pay $500 for packaging plus shipping for us to come pick it up and take it back. I mean, that's all in the fine print on like page.
And you don't have time to
14.
read that.
No. So hiring somebody like you, tell us why. I mean, you're starting a business. Why come see Danny? And I'm calling you Danny out of the gate instead of Daniel. That was one of Megan's questions. But when you're sitting down with somebody who's starting a business, what kind of checklist are you going through with these people? And what is it that, it's buyer beware or owner beware that you're guiding them? Go for it.
Yeah. So, it starts with the big picture. We want to make sure that we got the big things right first. So when it comes to things like entity formation, when it comes to things like bank accounts, when it comes to things like insurance, we want to make sure that those things are in place because those are the big ticket items. That's going to travel with you no matter what you do in your business. So if that's not set up properly, there's not really much you're going to be able to do after that from a protection standpoint, right? We always say that you should set up a team. That team should include an attorney. That team should also include a CPA. I can't tell you how frustrating it is to work with business owners who don't have CPAs. And then, April 15th comes, they're like, oh, I have to file taxes. Like, yeah, dude. It's one of those things that you're kind of liable for here. When it comes to narrowing that down, so specific contracts, look, contracts aren't meant to just be words on pages. The words on those pages matter if you ever get sued. That's the second part of that sentence is what people usually miss. If there's a lawsuit, that contract is what's going to be enforced. And it's going to be enforced by the letter of that contract, unless you have, you know, other actions and stuff like that. But at that point, you'll be dealing with a lawyer anyway. One point I want to touch on, because I think it's something that people don't quite really grasp, and it's not because they can't, it's just because you don't think about it this way. Whenever you're doing something like a Rocket Lawyer, like a LegalZoom, like a ChatGPT, which is very popular right now, you have to remember that this is information that you're putting out there. And unless it's information that you've done before, you know what it means, you're basically just making your own contract and you're not having any kind of assistance with it. Things that I hate seeing is people who set up entities, right? And they're like, hey, I did this on LegalZoom, so I'm protected. Well, did you set it up the right way? Do you know what you have? Do you know what your protections are under that LLC, right? Same things with contracts. You know, you can go to LegalZoom, download an NDA. Well, what information is that protecting? Is it protecting the whole conversation? Is it protecting parts of it? What if this is what parts of this is usable, what isn't, right? And when you're practicing law yourself, if you're not in the legal field, you know, you're going to feel great until a lawsuit happens. And then you're like, wait a minute, I had no idea. You know, so that's the big thing, right? It's not necessarily about what happens when you first do it. It's what can happen if there's a lawsuit, whether if you have to sue, if you're a vendor, or if you get sued, if you're a vendor, client, customer, right? That's what we have to think of, not today, but 2 years down the line.
Mm-hmm. And so when I first set up Launch and Go, as you know, when you come in as a new member, there are the terms and conditions.
Yes.
Which are lengthy, but it's there for a reason.
Right.
And if you actually take the time to read it, it's one, protecting you, two, making sure everybody enjoys the quiet enjoyment of the office space and things you can and can't do. And like, I can immediately kick your ass out of here if there are certain things that you like. If you're cooking meth,
I was gonna say, if you're cooking fish,
cooking fish, burning popcorn, you're not. You know, don't change, not changing the roll of toilet paper. You're gone. But so I had an attorney that somebody recommended, and you know, I'm like, okay, it looks good. 2 years down the road, it's like, you know what? It's time to revamp, update these terms and conditions, just because I want to make sure they're fresh. They got a new date on them, and I had a different lawyer look at it. There were like 4 things in there.
Really?
Like, why is this written this way? The way this is written, you are open to, and I mean, it was like a barn door opening, you know, as you said, a lawsuit. And I went back to the first attorney and they go, well, that's not what I put in there and meant. And I'm like, okay, look, this is exactly, I went with your document, not mine. And he goes, I said, I'm not coming after you for legal ramifications. I just want to know why you worded it this way. He had no rebuttal. He couldn't. So I did change it according to the second lawyer. But every couple of years I do that. I'm like, just so it's fresh. And I mean, you have to, don't you? And your entity, like this year, I finally switched over. Just did it 2 weeks ago. Switched over to an S corp from an LLC. Totally different. Now I think I've got to go back and there's probably some other legal documents that I need to protect my business and make sure all my other businesses are structured under this umbrella. I don't know what those are yet.
Right.
I got my accountant telling me it's time because of this, and here's why you need to be an S corp now. But he doesn't know on the legal side. So it's like, what is the difference? Like, what are the legal protections of an LLC versus an S corp? And obviously, it has to do with levels of income too.
Yeah. So I think that's a great question, right? The S corp is an often miscategorized kind of word. An S corp is a tax status; it's not an entity. With an S corp, you can either attach that to an LLC or a corporation, right? Any kind of corporation, whether it be a professional corporation, a stock corporation, you know, things like that, right? So when you hear the word S corp, or when I hear the word S corp as an attorney, my first question is, okay, so what's the underlying entity? Because if the underlying entity is an LLC, that gets treated legally differently than a corporation does. So your standard stock corporation. The big difference between a stock corporation and an LLC, which is, you know, everyone's kind of favorite question when they're starting a business, it's a great question, is formalities. right? The LLC was created to help people who were individuals start business with a lot less of the formalities than a corporation would. Corporations have so much more formalities. You need to have bylaws. You need to have officers. You need to have directors. You need to have all these standards. And that's even if you're just one person, right? So if it's funny whenever we have for professional corporations, I mean, for professionals, you need to have a professional corporation in California. So let's say you have a dentist, right? And a dentist comes to us to do our corporate meetings. Well, he's all the directors. He's all of the officers. He's the CEO, treasurer, right? CFO. And because he has to have a corporation, he has to have a corporation, right? Because he's a professional. However, if it's someone who's owning like a restaurant, right, and it's a single shareholder or single member, single person owning this business, for them, an LLC makes a lot more sense. One, you have less formalities. You still have to have an operating agreement because that's ultimately what protects you in case you ever get sued. But the rest of the requirements are a lot simple, right? Even though you should have a yearly meeting, it's no longer a requirement, right? Even though you need to have a list of your members, it's a lot more informal than having a list of your shareholders. And for us, it really just depends on what kind of business you're running and what we believe is going to be easier on the people in the business. The other thing too is if you have multiple people in a business, let's say someone's investing in the business and a couple of other people are going to be working in it. You have 3 people, they're all going to have a share of it. We'd much rather have a corporation in that situation because now we can attach formalities. Now we have rules to go by to make decisions, right? And not that you can't write that in an LLC, but as a corporation, it's just the base. So it's less for us to think about and have to do in an operating agreement. So those are kind of some of the differences. S corp is just a tax status. It is great. It is something that once you hit that range of income, it's very beneficial. It treats you very positively if you're a business that has less than 100 shareholders. But that's for S corps. It's definitely one of those things that you should talk to your accountant before making that decision.
Okay.
I like it. So
And
I
you
can
talk
keep
to
my-
your accountant.
Yeah, I guess I can keep my LLCs based on.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
I'm not gonna say what Danny just said because now it's in the bill.
Yeah, right.
So-
Yeah.
Hey, there you go.
So not legal advice, but just some pointers. Your LLC still exists. It's just going to get taxed as an S corp, but nothing changes from its corporate standing.
Okay.
Yeah, there's other tax advantages that I found out that are really nice. It's like, oh,
Yeah, that's what
okay,
I've heard.
I like those.
When I had my business, I never got to that point where I was making that kind of income.
You can have a 401k now,
I know.
and I can have an employer matched contribution.
Oh, so you
about-
can match yourself?
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Maybe,
Nice.
maybe when I make some money, but in the meantime,
Yeah.
it's nice thinking about it.
It
We
is
can
nice
bring-
thinking about it.
You mentioned insurance, and that's a big damn deal because that
Absolutely.
is like, I don't know. It's an umbrella policy here, something
Mhm.
in the millions,
Mhm.
like
So if somebody
above
is
that.
cooking meth over
Yeah,
here in the
yeah.
kitchen.
Or somebody trips and falls
Right,
inside
yeah,
the office, but it's like it covers you, a certain amount per incident and then
Mhm.
overall for so much.
Right.
But I will say this, and this is my plug to Hartford because I've been with them
Mhm.
since day one.
Mhm.
There have been 2 situations in here with water pipes and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And the folks downstairs are like, hey, I'm like, I have nothing to do with it. This is I'm
It's
the
not
owner of the building. Right.
mine, it's the building owners, yeah.
But they tried to file something against me.
Mm,
I called the Hartford.
and they took care of it.
There, don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
Darren, well, they call me every couple of weeks. They're like, here's the update.
Yeah.
Here's what's going on. Yes, they're trying, but here's what's happening.
Right.
Nothing in the end. It wasn't my fault anyway.
Right, yeah,
but
yeah.
they were just grasping for straws. How important, I mean, coming out of the gate day one is insurance. What do you need to look for, or, the must-haves, and then it's good to have this, and why somebody comes to you to get this advice.
Yeah. So even though we're not insurance agents or insurance providers, we love when our clients have insurance because it's just an extra layer of protection from them, right? In your example where you mentioned the pipes bursting, if you didn't have insurance, well, guess what? You're paying for that litigation yourself. Whether you're right, wrong, or in between, that cost would come out of pocket. Because you are paying an insurance company, that insurance company has their own lawyers handling it, and you don't even have to worry about it. that's the kind of beauty of it. The other thing too is when you think about insurance, you want to think about industry specifics. So not everyone needs every kind of insurance, right? We all hear the term umbrella insurance, and yeah, obviously that's recommended if it's the most you can get. But you also want to think about things in that you might specifically need. For instance, if you're someone who handles sensitive information online, hey, maybe you need a cybersecurity insurance policy. If you're someone that's going to be dealing with animals for whatever reason, right? There's separate insurances for that as well. So when it comes to insurance, it's really important to, I'm not saying read through your policy and know every line from page 1 to page 900, but you should have at the very least know what you're covered under for your specific business. So, for someone like me who's an attorney, errors and omissions insurance is huge. Malpractice insurance is huge, right? It kind of protects us in case we mess up or in case we do something that a client might say, hey, we don't think this was right. For restaurants, hey, they have their own insurance, right? They have fire insurance. They have to have certain kind of water insurance to protect them. So whatever your industry is, it's always best to kind of, form a little mastermind of people who might be in that, whether it's in your state or not, and see what they do to protect themselves from that. The other thing too is landlords. Whenever you enter a lease, and we can have a whole 9-hour discussion about landlords. I'll keep this one short. Whenever you enter leases with landlords, most landlords are going to require you to have certain amounts of insurance and certain protections for you in that lease. It's not a certainty that the landlord would always protect you in case something happens with a business. So when you're entering into leases, you need to make sure you know that, and you need to make sure you have insurance to protect you from that.
No, this new one will throw you under the bus.
Oh, really?
Okay,
Groovy.
it.
Groovy to know. So if you are a solopreneur and you're just working out of your extra bedroom in the house, and you have an LLC, you don't necessarily need the kind of insurance that Darren has because Darren's like physically located and renting, and
I have a special rider for my policy. Yeah, it's insurance through Lloyd's of London. It's the sarcasm rider. So if you are offended or like burst your brain because
you've had a few problems with that, yeah.
I'm covered.
Yeah, so I mean, so to answer your question, right? If you're a solopreneur working from your spare bedroom or your kitchen table, whatever the case may be, depending on what role you have and what you're doing for your clients, you might need different types of insurance. Look, obviously, unless there's people coming on your premises, you're not going to need premises insurance in case people slip and fall, right? You're not going to sue yourself if you bust your butt going to the kitchen. However, you might need other types of insurance, right? Let's say you do work from home, but you have remote employees. Well, you're still going to need insurance for that, right? You're still going to need, insurance to make sure they get paid, workers' comp insurance, things like that are still things you're liable for. So, in your example, no, they won't need the umbrella insurance that covers absolutely everything, but there are aspects of it that they will need, and it's really important for them to talk to an attorney or an insurance agent to see what's the comprehensive game plan for them and their business.
That's good. So here's a question, because Lynn is a content writer. So your independent business that you have or had, she writes content for businesses and they come to her. Could she have something like an errors and omissions or something like that? Like, hey, I'm providing you the content based on the information you provided me. And what I'm providing is not false or based on my research, et cetera, et cetera. And they come back one day and they're like, hey, Lynn, you know that blog you wrote, that article, that white paper you wrote for us? We realized that this one fact that you stated was actually not true. And you should have researched that. So we want some of our money back. And if you don't, we're coming after you for this. Is there something?
Yeah, I'll recommend
to cover her for that.
I'll recommend two things. The first one is in the contract. If you're a copywriter, you want to make sure that the last kind of approval goes to the person who's going to be accepting that copyright, and that they have final sign off on it saying, yeah, we approve of what was written. We sign off on this. We've read it. We reviewed it. Cool. That way you kind of protect yourself from them saying, oh, you wrote this, but that's not what we meant. Right? Giving them that final approval, it might be an annoying process for them, but it protects you from those kind of situations. Also protects you from not getting paid, which I know is an issue sometimes for people who are freelancing or who have businesses that are, you're not physically located next to each other.
Right.
Then as far as errors and omissions insurance, it's one of those things where think typos, right? So for whatever reason, right? Let's say we're writing, and this is a far off example. Let's say we're writing for like some kind of church, and the name of the pastor you're writing for, his name is Devin. And by mistake, instead of Devin, you spelled devil. And now the business loses a whole bunch of money because of your copyright that you posted on there. And they're like, if it wasn't for you and this typo, we would have had all these people here. Well,
Right.
in that situation, that's something where Arizona Emissions Insurance should cover you if you have the right coverage.
Okay. Okay. So if somebody is starting a business or they're fairly new into their venture, how do they find an attorney like you? Some people just aren't connected into the community to know to even ask the question, and they don't want to spend a gobs of money, but they need some sound advice. How do they go about finding attorneys that work with small businesses?
That's a great question. To be honest with you, business attorneys that work with smaller businesses are harder to find just because law firms come into two different types. There's your litigation law firms that are taking everything to court. What
Yeah.
that means is if someone who wants contracts comes on there, they're going to upsell that, right? It's going to be something that's going to be more expensive because they get paid more on an hourly basis for litigating than they do contracts. So it's something that they're going to take full advantage of that and say, hey, we take 2 hours on this. We're going to charge you 2 hours, even though it might not otherwise, right? So if you're looking for documents, don't go to a litigation law firm, right? That would be my first kind of example for that. The second thing is, depending on the size of your business, you should be setting a budget for yourself, right?
Mhm.
As money comes in, what I kind of tell people who are starting off is set a certain percentage of amount of money aside to go over legal needs as you're growing. So if I'm selling empanadas for $1, 10 cents of that dollar is going to go to the piggy bank to do legal work once I can afford that,
Yep.
right? And from that point, there's two different ways you can find them. Online, Google is the easiest one I can tell you, right? There's a lot of services that are really good that help small businesses with their early on needs.
Mhm.
There's I'm trying to think of their name, but I think it's called the subscription law firm where
Mhm.
they work with business owners on a subscription model where I think it's like $20 a month, right? And there you can get legal advice. They have access to templates, and these are templates that are created by attorneys. So look, are they going to be specifically for what you need? No, it's not going to be 100%, but it's a better start than something that you did yourself.
Sure.
The second thing is, referrals is the best part, right? If you're a business owner, when you network, ask people, hey, who do you use for legal? That's kind of my second best option. I know, just throwing a plug. Look up Empire Business Law and find me. That's another way to do that.
Yeah.
No, but in all honesty, though, right? A lot of it is talking to people who are comfortable with the attorneys they've worked with,
Sure.
right? That's a big deal, and making sure that when you are seeking an attorney, you know what kind of work you want. If you're just looking for like a strategy session, some law firms will charge you for that up front, right? So just know that. And just see what works for you. That's like I wish I had a better answer as far as like how to
Yeah.
find one,
Yeah.
but use the internet, use the people you know. That's typically the best way to go.
And that's really how do you get started? It's
Right.
where do you
Right.
go? It's
Well, I mean, in the real estate business,
Mhm.
the other part that I work in,
Yeah.
there's a lot of different closing attorneys that we
Yeah.
work with.
I know.
And there are some
Mhm.
I see them come across, and I'm like,
No.
oh boy, we have to work with this attorney on this one. And I know it's like, and other ones, I'm like, oh, thank goodness, these guys are great. They're easy to work with. Boom, boom, boom. And they provide a lot more than just what we need, when it's
Sure.
anyway. There's that, but like you said, it's not easy. And how the hell do you find someone that's reputable,
Right.
too?
Right.
And I thought, new in the community,
Right.
new in this business, I asked for a recommendation. Found out a couple of years later, not so good.
Maybe not the best one.
I'm gonna go on to this, and then, but I have another person who is a business attorney, had a membership here for a while. And when I would go to him for legal stuff, he's like, so here's certain things that I was trying to establish a business that I was working on, and he's like, okay, for these things, you're going to need me to do this. For these other things, I can do it. My billable hours are this, or I can have one of my paralegals do it, and and then the billable hours are this. And it was 2 stages.
Oh, sure.
So it's like, how important is that?
Yeah.
And he goes, well, these things are like boilerplate. So I'd have the paralegal.
Paralegals, yeah.
So let me kind of like touch on that point too, because I think that different law firms have different processes for everything, right? It's just the way it is. A lot of times, no matter what kind of law firm you go into, if they do have paralegal, they do have legal staff, those people they're meant to do the early work, right? They're meant to do your early drafts. They're there to provide as comprehensive help as they can before the legal advice comes in. Usually what happens is they'll get the first draft over to the attorney, then the attorney picks that thing apart, sends it back to them to do the revisions, right? So that's typically how that works, which means it shouldn't be like not to talk down on anybody's practice, but in my opinion, it should never be, hey, I'll do this for this much, but if you only want to pay me this much, I'll have my paralegals do it. Because at that point, paralegals technically aren't licensed to give you legal advice, and they shouldn't be doing anything without a kind of attorney review anyway, right? So, example of our firm for us, yes, we do have our legal assistants and our paralegals do like early work, but nothing goes out of here without me having eyes on it, without me reviewing it and letting it go to a standard that I'm okay with. So most law firms operate to a model like that or similar to that. But yeah, so just kind of some behind the curtains on the legal production side.
You want to stay on the business side, or you want to go to law stuff?
All right, go. Yeah, go law stuff.
Law stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
What are your
I want to talk about trademarks.
I do too. I really want to, because I get involved in some of that.
But I also want to know about Danny's business and how he got started.
Exactly.
And the pitfalls and the hurdles he went through.
Okay.
So you want to do trademark?
Let's talk about
trademark law. Oh, hold on, here he goes. Wait a second. Putting a tie and a coat on for this. No. Trademark law. I mean, this is in copyright. These are big things in business that people are like, we got Toasting the Business. I've got Launch Your Workspace.
Right.
These are all names, and it's like, can I trademark these names? And why would I want to?
And what's the precedence that
is
set?
And how much money is it going to cost?
Right.
Like, is it worth? What's a trademark really worth? And why should you do it? And when you just say no, it's not, unless you just feel like spending the money. So help us out. Let's go through.
Yeah, what's the rule of thumb that when you need to go actually talk to a lawyer?
Marketing.
Yeah, right. The name of my company. When do I need to go to an attorney to talk about trademark? At what point is that important?
So I get really nerdy about this, so I apologize if I don't shut up.
Go on,
No,
get going.
do it.
Get going. Yeah.
No, so I like to think about these things from a practical standpoint, right? Not everyone has the same funds as everybody else. It just is what it is. Some people have more money to start with than others. When it comes to trademarks, you're thinking long term. You're thinking, if I have this, is this what I want to be my brand? Is this what I want to be recognized as going forward? Or is this just something I'm flirting with, right? If it's something that I'm testing out different names, you know what? It might not be worth the investment to have an attorney go file for this right now. But if you have a brand that's established and you're saying to yourself, hey, I've been in this business for a few months, this is going to take off now. I believe I have full faith in this branding and this marketing. At that point, we say, hey, go get that trademark. To kind of back things up, though, there's 2 different types of trademarks that people can apply for when they're early on in business. It's called a 1A and a 1B. 1A is an in-use trademark. It means that you're already using the mark in business. A 1B intent to use is a trademark that says, hey, I plan on using this in business, and I want to hold the rights to it till I do that.
Like
Typically,
buying a web domain.
Yeah. Oh my God, domain names are a whole separate thing, but they also kind of deal with this, right? But
We'll have you on again, and we can talk about the domain. We're gonna have Jason Aldrich in here because that's what he loves.
Oh, he likes to talk about that. Okay, all right. You digress.
Go ahead.
No, so essentially, right, depending on how large your company is, right, how much influence you already have, the trademark process is going to be different, right? So, I'll give you an example. One of our clients is a really big marketing firm. They do marketing for plastic surgeons and dentists and all that stuff. And they're always coming out with different products for those people. Because of that, whenever a new product name comes out that they're going to brand, it's really important for them to protect it. So whenever they even have the idea, they're like, hey, look, this is going to be something that we're testing. Can you get us the provisional trademark for this, right? Or the 1B intent to use. Sometimes they say, hey, you know what? We found out this name sucks. We're not going to use it. We can abandon the 1B. Or sometimes they say, we're going to go with this. Let's convert this to a 1A. We're going to hold this trademark. Now, look, that's a company that's been around for a long time. They have funds to do that. If you're an early on entrepreneur, let's say you're a year in, it can be a little bit hard to make that decision because, look, not only is it the cost of the trademark, but the trademark process itself lasts a whole year, which can be kind of nerve-wracking if you're doing it yourself.
Yeah, that was my other comment was going to be, and how long does this take?
Right. Yeah. So look, I think a good way to go is to kind of talk to you through the typical process. Whenever you hire an attorney to do it, this is kind of the way they'll do it. And what you should kind of copy yourself to some extent is the first thing we do is we perform a trademark search. We want to make sure that if we file for this trademark, one, we're not going to be wasting our money. And two, we're not going to get sued if someone sees that we're trying to do this. So our trademark search consists of, if you're doing it yourself, there's two options. One, please Google it. That's the easiest thing to do, right? That's a common sense one. The second thing is the USPTO, which is the governing body that governs trademarks. They have this thing called a test database, TESS. On there, you can type out what your trademark is, and any kind of similar names or exact names, if there's exact names, will kind of come out, and you can do your research through there. From an attorney standpoint, when we do our searches, we not only search, obviously Google and test, but we also crawl the Secretary of State website for every state. We crawl domain names, we crawl social media sites. So the comprehensive search goes really deep, and we go international with that, just so we kind of know where we might have some kind of potential issues. But let's say we give you a green light on the trademark. The next step is filing the application. While that sounds super easy to do, there's a lot of technical jargon that you have to do in your applications to make sure that, one, they're right, and two, they're protecting what you intend to protect. There's 45 trademark classes. Sometimes certain products and services cross those classes, right? So you might say, hey, I'm selling this is the most popular one. I'm selling online services where we're doing software. Well, what does that software do? Is it just software, or is it software to do legal work, or software to do accounting, or software to show you where to buy the best sneakers? Those are different classes that will need different applications, or not different applications, but different classes in that application. If you don't do that and you apply for just one of those things, well, guess what? You have to refile again for the second thing or third thing, which, at a year of process can get really annoying for someone.
Yeah. I'm tired.
I'm just pulling my checkbook out right now.
We're not even halfway through.
Well, let me ask you, because we had a business that had a great name, still has a great name.
Mm-hmm.
Hanging on to it. And but doing the search for the business it's like, okay, for the state of Georgia, it's fine. Mm-hmm. But I don't have time to go through
the entire country
to make sure that I'm okay with this. Yeah, I'm going to hire an attorney to do that.
Right.
And then all the other parts of it, they're like, okay, well, now what?
45 categories. We got to consider the 45 categories.
When I started Launch and Go, I had a different name. Mm-hmm. And just dumb luck out of the blue, somebody called me, a vendor that I was potentially working with, and they're like, hey, are you related to the co-working office in Louisiana? I'm like, hold on a second. Mm-hmm. How do they? I'm like, they're not coming up. And they go, no, and they're like, it was like .io, dot something mm-hmm. at the end. And all of a sudden it came up, and they had 3 locations. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I got to come up with a new name for my
Yeah.
company.
Right.
And so I went to, actually, I like this a lot better
Yeah.
than what that was, but I didn't catch it.
Right. Right.
And I searched a ton to open up that business. Help me out. Continue. Part two. Part
Yeah,
two.
no,
You can either
so
interject on what I was just talking about, or you can just move on.
no, so first let me interject what you're talking about because it kind of goes with trademark search. It's really important for people to know that trademarks aren't something about being identical, right? So one way that a lot of people try to, skirt trademarks is by changing characters or changing the names, the way something's pronounced,
Or
and try to
spelling
claim it as their
perspective
own.
without an E.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, we're gonna have to get her on that. The example I like giving just because it's so popular is the name Nike, right? So the traditional way of spelling Nike is Nike. That's what we all know it as. It's very popular. It has $1 billion worth of like ads running at all times. If someone came to me and said, "Hey, we have this new store. We're gonna sell sneakers out of it, and it's Nike, but it's Nikey." Well, that's still trademark infringement, right? Just because you changed a little part of it doesn't mean that you're not benefiting from the fact that people will associate that with the Nike brand, right? So that's one thing on searches, right? You have to make sure that there isn't going to be any kind of confusion on there, right? It's not the exact, but it's likelihood of confusion that's the standard. Um, so second part of the process, really quick, and this is where the most people get hung up when they're using LegalZoom or Rocket Lawyer or Trademark, whatever, Trademark Factory, is that there's this thing called office actions. Office actions are the legal findings from the examiners at the USPTO that tell you why they don't want your trademark to go through. There can be a lot of different reasons. It could be because they believe it might be likely to confuse somebody. It could be because they don't like the address that you put because it's a virtual address and they want you to confirm that you have a physical location they can send correspondence to. It could be that you use a geographic location in your trademark and they believe that you shouldn't have that, right? There's a ton of reasons, right? We could spend a whole day on the list of reasons why they don't give you a trademark. But the point is, these office actions come in about 6 to 7 months within the process. If you don't answer those office actions within 3 months, then your application gets abandoned, and they say, "Okay, cool, try again next time. This application is done."
Oh,
If you do, um,
My head hurts.
you don't need to get
Yeah.
back in the chair. You got the microphone.
I
in your
know,
lap. Are you
I
gonna
know.
lay down on the floor?
I might
Jay?
after this.
Oh.
Just do it.
so look, I want to speed through it and get to the fun part about trademarks, right? So here's the thing about trademarks. Once you own a trademark, you're deemed to have protection over that name, over your service or product until you either abandon it or until you basically say, I no longer want to be in business, right? The cool thing about that is it's irrefutable presumption, right? So let's say toasting to business is trademarked for podcasts, then the owner of that mark, when they applied, you can't fight who the owner is, right? I can't come in and say, hey, wait a minute, I started that business and it's my business now, right? Or, oh, this is really my mark, right? That's a big deal when it comes to businesses that kind of, especially if they're ones that deal with things on a borderless scale. So like trademarks, I mean, not trademarks, like podcasts. Podcasts, you guys are in Georgia. I'm in California right now, right? And look at us interacting. Now that we're kind of in a more global market, this becomes more and more important. So the importance of trademark, and I'll leave it on this, is how much do you believe in yourself? Do you believe that the business or service you're starting is going to be something long term that you want to protect because you're going to build brand recognition behind it? Or is it something where like, hey, I'm kind of trying to make some cash right now. Maybe I stick with it, maybe I don't. It's kind of a side hobby. In that case, I probably wouldn't tell you to go get a trademark because it doesn't fit with line of your goals. So, I know that's a long question. There's like a lot of caveats to that, but that's kind of the process and the way we approach people with it.
Yeah, I know in my past career experience, traditional 9 to 5 job, the whole trademark thing is, holy cow, it's a lot. It is a year-long process. It's this constant checking in every 3 months with the legal team. Hey, what's going on? Well, we can advise you that there are other things out there called a similar or same name, but it's not same product. The product they don't compete in the same atmosphere, so
Right.
to speak. And it's nerve-wracking. It's absolutely nerve-wracking.
Well, let's get a professional opinion.
Yeah.
Should we trademark toasting to business?
How successful do you guys think you're going to be? That's kind of my answer to that.
4 years.
It's going to be massive.
Much. Big time.
Okay, so
Top
on,
5% in the world in podcasts. I mean, that's where we rank. So I don't know. What do you think?
yeah, I mean that's pretty big, right? So the bigger you are, the more likely that people will copy you, right? So, imagine someone started a podcast that's called Business Toasting. Guess what? That's pretty similar. If people searched you, they're probably going to find them and vice versa.
Mhm.
That's infringing on your trademark. That's using your goodwill that you've built with your customer base over the last 4 years to make money for themselves, right? In that situation, unless you have a registered trademark, you really wouldn't be able to sue them for trademark infringement because they wouldn't have what's called, notice, essentially. Like, yes, they might have notice, but it's harder to prove unless you have that trademark.
On the other side of this, because like you're saying, if somebody else has it,
Mhm.
we or somebody else would have to be out there searching for businesses who have the same or similar name or jumbled up versions of our name, that then we could go after them to send them a cease and desist letter, correct? And am I wrong about that, or am I right?
No, you're absolutely right. And what I'll tell you is software has come an amazingly long way. Where right now, if things like that, like we have our list of clients and our kind of portfolios of their names,
Mhm.
if there is something similar that comes up, we get an alert, and it's up to us whether we want to, send a cease and desist or not. It's all automated. Some things, look, it's one of those things where you still want to do your due diligence and make sure that you're checking things regularly.
Yeah.
But like you mentioned, this stuff happens everywhere. So these automated systems that kind of alert you to these things are super helpful for our practice. And it allows us to kind of stay on it for our clients.
Or you have an intern that's in law over in the corner, you give them a little cubicle, and this is all they do is
They do all
research
day.
names.
Yeah.
But no, I have a friend who, his business, part of the name that he has for a product that he sells
Mhm.
has, and it's really not, well, the way he put it, I'm like, yeah, that's a specific brand that you're saying is in your product.
Mhm.
Even though this is the name and you're using this ingredient,
Right.
you put the two together. This came to their attention, and that's why they sent you the cease and desist letter.
Mhm.
And he's like, I got to do all this. I'm like, no, it's a perfect marketing opportunity.
Yeah.
Instead,
Yeah.
what you do is you reach out to them and go, I'd love to continue to use this,
Right.
and I'm going to put it on my website, and I'm going to put a link to your stuff.
Right. Right.
Instead,
Yeah.
turn it into a positive instead of having a
Yeah. It's a
change
freak
it.
out. Yeah.
it was a one-off opportunity, but
This is a very good time to kind of just interject and talk about the penalties of trademark infringement.
oh boy.
So
Okay.
Checkbook time.
if let's say you get sued for trademark infringement and you lose that case, the plaintiff is entitled to all the profits that you've made while using that trademark. So,
Oh, God.
it's a hefty penalty, right?
Say that one more time.
The
They get to-
plaintiff is entitled to all the profits you've made. Like they
from
could take-
selling that mark. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a pucker factor.
Yeah,
right
that,
there.
I'm like, so I'm like,
Oh, geez.
"Ugh."
Yeah, it's gross.
Stand up for a minute.
Take it out, Sarah. Take it out.
Yeah, but I mean, but that's why this stuff is so important, right? We don't want to do it by mistake, and we definitely don't want to do it on purpose. So it's kind of why people like me and other attorneys in that space do what they do.
So if I'm like a cookie company and I say, I want to name this, my chewy gooey chocolate chip cookies, and you're going to label it that and sell it to the public, should I go out and make sure that name chewy gooey
It
chocolate
would
chip
have to be
cookies is not?
Darren's or Flanagan's gooey chewy gooey.
Actually, even not even, right? So there is a granola company by the name Chewy. I don't know if you guys ever had those.
Yeah.
So technically, if you use Chewy as your trade name and you're not using it in a descriptive matter, then that would be trademark infringement. You can't.
Okay.
you can't. So here's the thing: you can't trademark things that are descriptive. So I can't trademark
That's
like good pizza, right? Like I'm just describing pizza. You can't trademark things that are blatantly saying what they are. So I can't sell wine by the name wine, right? So there are some things that how many Joe's Pizza are there in New York, right? A whole bunch. My point with that saying is that there are kind of exceptions to these rules, and there are caveats, and unless you're in trademark law and unless you know this stuff, it's really I wouldn't want to do it myself, right? I wouldn't want to like guess whether I'm infringing or not. So at the very least, I would say if people are really worried and they're on a budget, at the very least, try to work with an attorney that'll get you a trademark search. Trademark searches are relatively inexpensive. Before you even do that, make sure you're looking at the test website and you're looking at Google. The thing I'll say with the test website as well is if you look at the test website and you see things that are similar to yours, you can see what the USPTO has said about those things, right? So let's say in this situation, we're looking at Chewy and we look at tests and say, oh, Chewy is trademarked, but they're only trademarked for how stylistic it looks, not for the word itself. That means that the trademark office said, okay, Chewy is descriptive, but the way that they're putting it out there in this specific font will protect that, not the word Chewy itself. So, there's different things like that.
Now you get into the other parts.
Mhm.
Font, what is
Oh,
it?
the
Fonts and
fonts.
colors. And,
Yeah.
I mean, when you're putting a trademark in, you have to be very specific about
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
Pantone
Pantone colors
and
and the RAL colors.
and the fonts that
Yeah.
I mean, this is right.
Yeah, and especially if you're trying to protect that specifically, right? So my favorite trademark, and it has nothing to do because I like jewelry, because I don't like jewelry, but Tiffany blue is a trademark
Mhm.
blue. You cannot sell any jewelry with that color box. You will get sued. You will get sued really quickly.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So, okay, so what are your favorite brands? I mean, you've probably studied a lot of this, and being a general business lawyer and a trademark expert, what are your favorite brands that you've admired over the years?
Great question. So there's a lot of brands that are really into protecting their assets.
Mhm.
So I grew up an athlete. I always loved the Nike company,
Mhm.
right? Nike has a lot of different sub brands that they protect. So Jordan or like the slogan, just do it. Those are things that are protectable, and they're also great examples of how far you can go with this stuff.
Sure.
Food, the Whopper, the Big Mac, those are trademarked items that, you can't open a restaurant and have things called by those names that might confuse customers. Very recently, this got a little bit overturned, but Taco Tuesday for a long time was something that only Taco John's, a taco company out of like Wyoming, could use.
Huh.
Now they've kind of made it a lot more broad because they've kind of lost their ability to protect it. But at some point, the only people that can use Taco Tuesday was Taco John and any of their affiliates. So, it kind of there's a lot of cool stuff there. The
Yeah,
Coca-Cola color, the Coca-Cola writing, all that
right.
stuff is
Yeah, the font.
trademarked. Like,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I got,
You got one for Megan?
well, first time caller, long time listener has phoned in a couple questions. But I do want, before I get to Megan's questions, I had one, I wrote it on the board behind us.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna kind of switch gears on you. When you're starting out a business and you're, like you said, you're working out of your house, you're doing this, keeping your own name versus having an LLC, what type of protections does an LLC offer you versus not having it? And why the hell should you do it? Which you should.
Mhm.
Yeah. So starting an LLC or a corporation for that matter is think about like you're creating a business baby. It's a whole separate entity from yourself. The whole point of having it is so that it has its own protections, it has its own rights that have nothing to do with you. So, there's a reason why whenever you start an LLC or a corporation, you need to have an EIN number. An EIN number is just a fancy way of saying this business's social security number, which everyone has, right? The way an LLC protects you is if you have in your operating agreement, and this is something that you have to have in your operating agreement, it says that it will indemnify you from anything that happens in the business itself. Those words are what keep you personally from getting sued if something happens within the business, right? So, if I'm trying to give you an example of this, right? So let's say you're driving your business vehicle, right? Let's say you're a contractor, you're driving your van, and it's a business van to a job, and you get into a car accident. Well, technically, it should be the business's insurance, the business's vehicle. You yourself shouldn't have to deal with any of the ramifications of that accident, outside of obviously if you get hurt or something like that, right? Same thing with contracts, right? If you are in a contract to, let's say, perform services for somebody, and your company enters into the contract, not you specifically, then that person, if there's a breach of contract or whatever, they can't come after you personally, but they can come after the business. The reason why people do it is because as we kind of grow in our life, we get assets, right? Maybe we buy a house, maybe we have bank accounts, maybe we have savings accounts, right? We don't want to make that something that people can come after if we mess up in our business by any chance. So an LLC and a corporation separates our business life from our personal life. And that's really important because the older we get, the more things we have, the more we want to protect.
So if you, oh, that is a nice level separation, you know, like church and state.
Yeah,
Keep
it
them
is.
separate.
Keep them
Church
separate.
separate.
Yeah.
But I want to know, so when you, even if you're a new business and you're taking on investors, and this is a totally different question, and you, a lot of folks will say, well, are you personally going to guarantee this? And it's like, you're investing in my company. An investment is a risk.
Right.
Personally guaranteeing something means if this goes tits up,
I'm going to give you something
I'm
out of my
still going to pay it
personal.
out of
yeah,
my personal. Can you kind of go into?
Yes.
I'll let you elaborate.
That's a
like, oh man.
That's a great question, and it happens all the time in two different situations. If we're getting a loan from a bank, and if we're entering a lease. So a lot of times when we enter into commercial leases, a landlord will have you personally guarantee the lease, which means if the business, let's say, goes belly up, like you mentioned, they'll be able to go after you and your personal assets if that happens, and they can come and collect rent from your personal life, right? That's something that a lot of landlords try to include in their leases. It's really important that you read that and understand that for yourself. The second part, like I mentioned, is bank loans or any kind of financing, right? Let's say you're buying a business and you're getting some seller financing as part of it. If that seller has a good attorney, they will make you guarantee your personal property, not just the property of the business. That's a situation where let's say the business fails and you're not paying your loan to the bank or to the seller, they can come after your personal assets to make up that difference. So it's really important that whenever you hear or see the word, guarantee, guarantor, personal guarantee, anything like that, that you're saying basically, hey, me as this individual, I'm taking on this risk, even if it is the business that's going into the contract.
Careful what you say.
Yeah.
Don't overpromise.
Hire
an attorney.
All right, we're going to end on a couple of Megan.
Okay.
questions.
Okay.
Oh no.
No, I'm good. Megan always has good questions.
So, Danny.
Talk like Megan.
I have a question.
Okay,
I
there you go.
gotta raise my hand. This is what Megan. I have a question. What are the downsides and upsides of working with startup companies?
Oof. Okay. So I love this because for me, it's a difference between business model and profitability. Startups are broke, man. They have no money, right? Like they're starting from the ground up most of the time, and unless they're at the point where they're getting investors, most of the time you're kind of limited to what you can legally do for them because they're just not going to be able to pay you, right?
Do you barter with them at all? Like if I said, I'll bring you, I got chickens in the backyard, I'll bring you a couple dozen.
You know what? The second part of the answer to the question is I love working with people who are betting on themselves and who are doing something to make the world better. So typically what we do in the situations is we try to make it work for them in a way that we're not going to, be in pain financially, but that they also can get the help they need. So, in a situation like that, the opposite, the second part of that question is, what do I love the most is the people who are willing to start something or see a void in the world that they can help. That's awesome, right? So Megan herself, right? She's I asked her before this interview if I can talk about it a little bit. Megan is the owner of Perspective, which is a sponsor of the show, or a sponsor of the show. And Megan has an amazing opportunity with what she's doing in her business. It's a perspective is something that is, I think, very much needed, especially now that most kids spend their time behind an iPad or whatever the case may be, and might not know more about what goes on in real life. It's a great opportunity to provide them with just information about what normal people do, right? You know what I mean? And I think that kind of education, like right now, it's starting with kids and it's going to go into college campuses and stuff like that. I haven't really talked to Megan too much about it, but I think there's an application that's going to transcend that. I think this is something that business brokers can potentially use to have their clients show, potential buyers what that business is like and kind of speed up the training process. I think it's a way for employers to be able to fast track training for their employees as well. Because some of this stuff is done to a smaller level, but nobody's doing it at the level that Megan's is right now. And I think as that kind of keeps growing, she kind of keeps getting ideas. She's absolutely going to kill it, and it's going to help a lot of people, which is what I love about working with startups.
That's why we trade for a bartender
That's right.
to
She's
advertise it.
She's really good.
And this is where our bartender is today. Lenient, aren't we?
Yeah,
Maybe we need to
are.
put some, have a lawyer write some
guidelines.
Yeah, we need to stiffen this contract up a little bit. All right. What was it? And one other question. Aside from actually doing lawyer stuff, what's the most challenging part of being a business owner in your field?
Oof, in my field, that's a good question. I think in my field, it's more about trusting people, right? You work really hard through your entire life to get your license. Then you work really hard to bring clients on. And then to kind of get to a point where you feel comfortable enough having other people work on stuff for those clients. It's hard, right? You don't really want to give up that control. You start thinking about, oh, what if the quality is not the same? What if something gets missed? It's kind of one of those things where, how perfect can you be? But like like the saying goes, right? If someone can do 90% of what you can do, or even 80% of what you can do, then you should delegate that stuff, right? So for me, I'm a pretty young entrepreneur still, where I'm still growing. There's a lot of stuff that I have to learn about being a business owner as well as a lawyer. So for me, I know one of the early things is learning how to let go in the right way, and when I can let go, be okay with letting go. I think that's like the biggest challenge right now.
I like that.
I like that too. Yeah.
So what states are you allowed to practice in or give advice in right now?
So that's a great question. When it comes to practicing law, I mentioned litigation, I mentioned transactional.
Mhm.
Transactional is a lot looser because transactional, you're pretty much talking contract law, right? Unless there's some state-specific language that you're dealing with, typically you're just dealing with contractual language. It means you can kind of work anywhere.
Okay.
When it comes to litigation, though, so when it comes to representing parties, at that time, you're subject to not only local laws and state laws, but also whatever rules you're dealing with that have to do with that specific venue. That's all stuff that you need to have a state license for, right? The rule of thumb, right, for anyone listening is if you're doing something that has to do with state specific, so if you're working with state governments or you're working on a contract that has something to do with state specific items, you need a lawyer from that state to do it. When it comes to more general things, so transactions are pretty general, contracts are pretty general, those kind of things, then you're good to use kind of any transactional attorney as long as they have a license, obviously.
Well, I asked that because obviously people are going to want to get in touch with you now. And so I just want to make sure that if somebody reaches out to you, you're like, well, I heard you on the podcast. And it's like, oh, I can't use you for that. And it's like, well, you can use me for this half. But I mean, so that's why I asked that question. How do people get in touch with you if they've got questions? And what is your hourly rate? No, don't.
No, you know what?
Or do you want me? No, how do people get in touch with you, Danny?
Yeah, so the best way to get in touch with me, if you're trying to reach me personally, my email address is dlopez, so D as in Danny, dlopez at empirebusinesslawfirm.com. The easiest way to find us is online. We're at empirebusinesslaw.com. I had to buy that domain after I got my first domain. That's why that's different than the email. And then you can also find us on social media. We have a YouTube channel, Empire Business Law. We're on LinkedIn as well as Facebook and Instagram. Haven't posted as much lately. It got a little bit busy with legal work, but I can promise you if you reach out to us there, we will get back to you as well.
That's awesome.
Excellent.
Lynn,
Yes, Dan.
you're going to do that in the write-up, aren't you?
I am going to do that.
All the ways to contact Danny
Here you go. Yes.
after your evening of playing
What?
cornhole.
No, that was Monday night. It was only Monday night. Cornhole.
I'm like, hey, how about this? Right? She goes, after I get back from playing cornhole. I know, normally it doesn't matter. There's no, we've got a,
We're loose. We got a life outside.
we
this
got
place.
time.
Yeah.
We're not under pressure. Danny, I'll tell you, how much did you?
I
my
learned a
brain
lot.
hurts.
I know. And that, like you said, I think I need to lay down and meditate on this and like digest it a little bit.
Ow.
Like I will say, like it's really hard to talk to attorneys. Attorneys use their own terminology a lot of times. One of the things that we take pride in is try to make it understandable to our clients. We try to make it so that's digestible. So when it comes time for them to make decisions, they're not coming at it from a place of holy crap, they said this, but I have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
You know, we want our clients to ask us questions when they do have those questions.
He was spouting Latin when he was trying to.
I was so intimidated. I didn't want to ask for clarification for he may think I'm stupid, so I just shook my head and said yes.
That happens so often though. Honestly, it happens all the times.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
oh, no.
No.
Danny, thank you so much for being on the show today. Megan picked another winner.
See?
As always.
As always, I know.
She's so good to us
She is very
in more
good.
ways than one. But I'll tell you what, I got a noodle on this. If I asked you to come back on, would you join us again for maybe some other topics?
I would love to. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Oh yeah. I got something. All right. Wonderful. Well, we love having you on the show today, folks. I'll tell you what, if you're reach out to Danny, just know it, don't take advantage of his niceness and
Yes,
generosity. Maybe like one question. If you start
Right.
bombarding him, he's got a right to bill you. Okay.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
be
He's
kind, but he
say
seems
no.
to know his shit and what he's doing.
Yeah,
So I'd
I
reach
know.
out to him.
Yeah.
I probably will.
Yeah.
You're going to get my terms and conditions really soon. Man. But thank you for being on the show with
Yes,
us.
thank you.
Appreciate it, guys.
We're hitting fall here.
No, really? It's
Yeah.
not faux, F-A-U-X,
No,
faux fall.
I woke up this morning. It was 56 degrees.
Fabulous.
I'm
It
like,
felt so good. Finally.
fire pit weather. Even though
Finally.
it's 80 something during the daytime.
Yeah.
But we're going to do like one little, because I'm taking a break for a week. And so that week, what we're going to do, we're going to pre-record something, and it is going to be like holiday shopping. And we are going to talk about some of the amazing guests that we've had on
Yes.
and products that you can
Oh, I can think
purchase
of a
for
bunch of them
people
already.
during
Yeah.
Christmas.
Mhm. Yep, I can think of a
Well,
bunch.
that's
I
a
like
plug,
that.
so
I like that.
Make your list. We're going to record that
Got it.
episode. And you know what? If you like this episode, and I'm sure you know somebody who needs a lawyer in the business world, share this episode with them and tell them to reach out to Danny.
Amen.
We good?
We're good.
Tell you what, y'all have a freaking great week.
And we're done. Yay!
That's it.
Mhm.
Oh, wait, I took my headphones.
Yeah, why'd you take your headphones off? What's going on? What's going on?
We ran a little long on that.
Yeah,
and
we
that's
did, but
okay,
there was some
but it was good stuff.
Good stuff.
It's
Yeah.
Megan's fault.
Do you have any questions for us? You kind of just like
No, guys.
rapid fire, you know?
No, it was awesome, and I've heard some episodes of your podcast, so like
Okay.
I got to know you guys before I got to know you guys, kind of
Okay,
thing.
good.
No, I have no questions, guys. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Okay, great. We appreciate you being here, really.
Yes,
Yeah.
really.
It's really good
It's
stuff.
just
I
fun.
learn every time I do this podcast, I'm like, oh, I just learned something new. I just learned something new.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
there's so much good information. You guys have like really good guests that like have a kind of like vast knowledge about this stuff. Like
Right.
I've enjoyed the podcasts I've heard so far.
Good,
Awesome.
good.
Do us a favor, subscribe and share.
Yeah,
Yeah,
subscribe.
no, I mean
And write us a little-
I did subscribe, so I'll go ahead and make sure I share a comment.
Tell your
Cool.
friends.
Awesome.
Tell your
awesome.
family.
We'll do the same, and I'll tell you what, you enjoy this beginning of October.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't know if the weather changes
The weather
much for
didn't
you in
change out
California.
It's
there.
like no,
Yeah.
it's like 100 degrees still. No, it's
Are you
painful.
serious?
Yeah, I'm originally from the East Coast, so I'm used to fall. Being
Yeah.
out here in like Southern California during the fall is really disappointing. I love the change of the leaves. I love that little chilly feeling you get
Yeah.
at night. I
Mhm.
definitely miss it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been a long time coming down here. It's been a brutal hot summer. So
Tell you what.
October, I'll take it.
I'll take 80 degrees in the beginning of October,
Mhm.
then freaking minus whatever.
20 in Minnesota. Yeah.
So, Danny, thanks. You have a
Yeah.
great day.
Have a great
Enjoy
evening,
the rest
guys.
of the week.
All right. Take
Talk to you
care.
later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.